Welcome back everybody to another episode of the Call of Duty Esports show, and today we're talking power rankings. Now these are the end of stage 1, start of stage 2 power rankings. For those of you who undoubtedly will ask how we calculate these, we did cover it in our previous video where we looked at the Modern Warfare season. That will be linked above. Starting off at the bottom of the leaderboard then, and we have the Seattle Surge in 12th place, and they have not moved since the end of Modern Warfare. Their map record throughout stage 1 being 1 win and 5 losses. That win coming in their first group game that was against the London Royal Ravens. They won in a game 5, and other than that they just really haven't been a part of the season at all. Relatively comfortably overwhelmed, and in particular their sub duo just didn't look up to the level of quality that you're going to need to supply Octane and Gunless. Some possible changes coming in here unless they manage to fix things, but for now Seattle at the bottom. In 11th is the London Royal Ravens, and they're down 5, the biggest drop out of anyone, and it is a massive drop as well in points. They're down almost 150 points throughout stage 1. Their map count throughout the stage was 0 wins for 6 losses. They did go to map 5 against the Dallas Empire and Seattle Surge, so they've had their moments, but still 6 losses is 6 losses, and they have been very, very poor. They've had an incredible amount of roster issues with Zero, Afro, and so on not being able to get over to North America, and them having to pull in Parasite last minute. Alex had family issues, which meant that Zed was pulled in last minute for the major. There has been a lot of problems for this side, but all the same, they've not looked in it at any point. In 10th, we've got the Los Angeles Guerrillas. They've actually moved up a place with a map record of 3 and 5. Throughout the group stages, they were winning games very closely. Several map 5s, really close victories, whereas their losses were extremely one-sided. In the major, they upset the LA Thieves, winning 3-0. That does sound like a really big swing, but they were incredibly close maps, but then they got completely run over from there. Because of that upset against the LA Thieves, they actually have a relatively healthy amount of CDL points in regards to the champs and standings, but overall, their actual performance-wise, they are just doing slightly better than last year, really. Nothing too special, and it is a case of if they start to lose some of those game 5s instead of win them, they could very easily trickle back down into the bottom 2. However, for now, much improved, and they need to do more of it if they're going to truly get involved in that mid-table battle. In 9th, we have the Minnesota Rokkr, a map count of 3 and 3. So an even map count in this one. Looked pretty good at certain stages. They beat Dallas. They also looked pretty much unstoppable in the Search and Destroy originally, but since then looked really disappointing. They went out immediately in the major, and the only other good results they picked up were against the London Royal Ravens and the Seattle Surge, both teams below them in the ratings. This side looks like one that could go on to do some good things this season, but so far it definitely isn't happening for them. In 8th, we have the Paris Legion, who managed to take 2 wins and 4 losses from stage 1, and at times this team have looked very, very good. I think before the season started, a lot of us had them at the bottom end of things, and they've actually been much more impressive than we would have thought. They've come together really well. Their young gun in Fire has looked very, very good, and generally speaking, they have had some incredibly close games. Think back to Super Week, they won 2 games and then lost to Atlanta FaZe in a game 5, so not bad at all, but their loss to the LA Guerrillas in a game 5 was a bit of a heartbreaker and meant that they went into losers rather than winners, and they were unfortunately kicked straight out at that point. In 7th, we have Toronto Ultra, and these are the other team that have seen a significant decline since the end of Modern Warfare, falling 3 places. They actually have a map record of 3 wins and 5 losses across the stage, and this team is all about game 5s. They looked super solid in the opening week, coming out and smoking Florida. They then lose expectedly to Atlanta and OpTic, and everyone's kind of like, okay, decent side, going to be a good one, and then they lose 2 game 5s versus the Los Angeles Guerrillas, and also losing a game 5 to the Paris Legions. They go into the major not in a great spot. They have to win 2 game 5s, one against the London Royal Ravens, one against the Minnesota Rokkr, in order to get through to losers round 3, where they do eventually fall out. I do think that this is a team that could go on to be impressive if they hit a good run of form, but the fact that they're seeing so many game 5 says that their losses and their wins are not necessarily convincing, and I just expect them to be stuck in this mid-table battle throughout the entire season. And actually, in regards to their ratings, I think they've actually benefited a little bit from other teams having been upset or beaten around them, and that's why they've not fallen as far as they perhaps could have. Into the top half of the table then, we have the Florida Mutineers. Now they're down 1. They won 3 games, lost 5 overall. They started really slowly actually and looked pretty awful in the group side of things, and they only actually managed to improve in the major. And to be honest, they were kind of lucky to get that opportunity too, because they were 2-0 down against the Paris Legion before reverse sweeping them. So this could have been a much worse stage for this side. They did obviously have an incredibly difficult roster mania period. But that being said, when you've got players like Skies, Awakening, the new man in Neptune, Slacked, who's been around for years, this side should be doing better. 5th, we have the LA Thieves. Now, these are obviously a new franchise, so there's no movement up and down here. They finished the stage 1 with a game record of 5-3, and in the groups, they looked very good. They came in 2nd behind the Dallas Empire, losing the deciding game at the end of Super Week. Everyone was kind of talking about how they looked like a dark horse to get involved in the top 3 battle. That was very quickly put to rest, and very much so seen as they benefited from a weak group when they get 3-0'd by the LA Guerrillas and then get dumped out pretty early in the losers bracket as well. Definitely a side that I think could be a genuine dark horse, but they aren't seeing out tough matches. They either completely smoke a side or they're just not great. In 4th is the New York Subliners. Now, these are the team that have climbed the most out of everyone, up 4 places, and they actually end stage 1 with a 6-4 game record, which is an incredible feat, really, considering that they went through a very late amount of roster mania issues in regards to Zuma retiring and so on, and having to figure all that out, and visa issues for Hydra, who they wanted to pull in. So they actually have done incredibly well to get to this point. They started off with a 3-0 loss to the LA Thieves, but all 3 of those maps were relatively close, and they'd only been practicing for a very short amount of time. And I think a lot of us turned around and said, with a bit of fine-tuning, these guys can be much better. They then come out and completely smoke London Royal Ravens as well as the Minnesota Rokkr in 2 of the quickest, most dominant series we have seen in a very long time. Fortunately, go on to lose in the reverse sweep fashion versus the Dallas Empire, see off the Seattle Surge, and suddenly we're like, okay, this New York team is not one to mess around with. Could they go on to do something special in the tournament? Well, they get 3-0'd immediately by the OpTic Chicago, go on this big losers run, then 3-0 OpTic Chicago in the losers semifinals, eventually only falling to the Dallas Empire. So even though they have 4 losses on their ticket, one of them was their first game as a team in which all 3 maps were close. They lost twice to the Dallas Empire, once to OpTic Chicago. Generally speaking, a very good set of results, and definitely one that could continue to improve. They have Hydra waiting on the sidelines, and honestly, this is the side that's looking like they might get involved in that top 3 battle. Into the top 3 battle that we've spoken so much about, and in 3rd is indeed the OpTic Chicago roster, Chicago OpTic, whichever way you want to call this team. And this could have been such a different turn of events for this side. They looked great in the groups, beat everyone, came up against the Atlanta FaZe, and they lose in a game 5. And actually in the respawns, they looked incredible, and it was only some last minute heroics from the Atlanta FaZe side that stopped OpTic winning this. But then in the search and destroy, Atlanta came out and smoked them. So it was definitely one of those where you're like, okay, OpTic look really good all of a sudden. We go into the major, OpTic lose another game 5, this time a round 11 to the Dallas Empire. OpTic look like they've improved dramatically, however, they're just not seeing it out, and then they just completely collapse in the losers semifinal against New York. Again, one of those where it could have gone such a different direction for this side if they beat Atlanta FaZe in that game 5 and they beat Dallas Empire in the game 5. If they win both or either of those, I think this is a completely different stage. But as it stands, I do think OpTic fans will be disappointed, and I think that the side as a whole will think that they can improve. Typically, OpTic sides start the season really well and then fade off throughout the rest of the season, and it's all about that mental side of things we've always felt with OpTic. And I do wonder if that will be be the case again, or do we see a very strong bounce back in stage 2? Second place is the Dallas Empire. They've fallen one, and actually they're the only team throughout this entire thing that have gone up in ELO rating, but have fallen down in positions, finishing the stage with a 6-3 record. They won a relatively easy group. They did have an upset loss to the Minnesota Rokkr, but otherwise it was all pretty much straightforward for them. They win that big round 11 game 5 match against OpTic. They look absolutely fantastic, and then from there they just go on to lose twice to the Atlanta FaZe, who came out as champions. They do look a really good squad. Huke in particular looks like a star for this season, and unfortunately they just dropped because of the team in first, which is the Atlanta FaZe. Atlanta FaZe then with their top spot, and they have an 8-0 record at the end of things. Didn't lose a single game throughout the entire stage. They did go to game 5 twice throughout groups, but when it came to the major, they only dropped 2 maps throughout the entire thing, and both of those were in the grand finals against Dallas. So a ridiculously good side, an incredible rating at this point. They are over the 1500 point marker, and last time we did these ratings and we spoke about them, we did note that it took a long time for any team to break 1500. Just to kind of show you how strong Atlanta FaZe have been at the start of this season. They truly are the team to beat, and they, ladies and gentlemen, are the people who are not only the champions via Major 1, but the top of the power rankings going into stage 2. Anyway guys, that is everything for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you do have questions around our methodology and how we do this, please do let us know. And leave a thumbs up and hit a subscription below. We would really appreciate it. I'd love to break 20 on the thumbs up, and the subscriber count, can we get ticking towards the 1400 subscribers? We just keep watching the number go up at the minute. I want to thank all of you who keep watching and commenting and liking and getting involved for your support. Until next time, enjoy your Call of Duty. Take care.